Anyways, we're back. What's
All
up,
right.
Nick?
How you doing?
I love Sprite. Drink Sprite. It's good for your bones.
Okay, so we're here again at Fang Studios for episode 2 of Local Legacies, starring Joel Haston. Joel's been a promoter in Northern California for all things music in the Salinas areas and the majority of the Bay Area, among other locations.
Yeah.
He also has had his hand in artist management, has overall been a fixture of the community for a long time. The first question I'm going to ask you, Joel, is how did all of this get started? What pushed you towards the music scene in general, in terms of like helping local music, but also specifically like there's a lot of roles in there. You can own your own venue, you can be a musician. Why show promotion, and what exactly got you into the music scene as a whole, like when you were younger?
Well, when I was a kid, I grew up in Santa Cruz. It was like I lacked a lot of good social skills. I didn't really have a place I belonged. I got really I battled with a lot of fitting in issues, and then when I found the metal and hardcore scene, it just kind of clicked. It was the first time I felt like I had a place I belonged, a place I could go. I had no friends growing up until that really. So the scene really just kind of back in when I started going to shows in 2001 or 2, it really welcomed me in, and then I had a couple friends that wanted to start putting on events. I grew up in Santa Cruz. There was the promoter that did a lot of the local metalcore and hardcore shows. He just kind of up and disappeared one day. So me and one of my friends who unfortunately passed away a couple years ago, Paul Sanchez, started doing shows together. We worked loosely with a couple of the arsonists and all the girls guys to make it happen, and then Nick Bain as well. Him and I actually went to high school together. Okay. So we all kind of started doing it, and then after about, it was not very long after we started, Paul actually passed away, and that was a bummer. I forget how many years after, but Paul had a kid and he had to move, so we had a bunch of big shows set up. I just kept going. I just kept doing it. I liked what I did. I had a place to go. I provided people with a place to go, bands' place to stay. I used to house all the bands myself back in the day. So Paul he had a kid and had to move away. He had some health issues, which I get it. Everybody, we all have our shit. So he moved away. I started taking care of things, just kind of kept it going. I knew it was what he wanted, and I had a lot of encouragement. And like I said, in Santa Cruz, there wasn't a lot to do in that type of music and regard. And I had found a place to fit in, and I wanted the kids, younger than me, to have that same feeling, because it changed my life. So I kind of stuck with it from that point on. I did shows in Santa Cruz for a long time under the name Haston of Productions. And then, that lasted about 4 or 5 years.
Okay. I recall you saying to me in a side conversation that you were, but you hail from New Mexico, though, right? You said you grew up in Santa Cruz?
So I grew up in Santa Cruz. When I was 17, my parents moved to New Mexico. So I've been on my own here since I was 17 for the most part. And then I travel back and forth to see my family.
Okay, so you were never located in New Mexico?
I was for about 2 years of my life. I had to take care of my dad. He had some health issues, but that was after Arsenic had ended and I had become a member of the PinUp Productions family.
Okay, so did you ever do any local music show promotion and production in New Mexico, or was that just kind of strictly a family thing?
A few people that did it, and I basically just kind of helped them out, and that was it. I still had so much stuff going on back here, and it's really hard to take a place where there's basically no scene and build it up. It takes more time than I had when I was out there, because I was out there for personal reasons.
So it's pretty desolate out there. The scene's not a lot of infrastructure.
Not anymore.
Okay.
The part of southern New Mexico and El Paso are really close to each other. Texas.
Yeah.
So their scene actually is really, really good now, and I'm glad I got to see part of that. And I know a lot of people out there, and it's still like a second home to me. So
Speaking of second home, you were speaking just earlier about how you sort of were gravitated to the music scene because of sort of a sense of community that you felt like you were lacking like growing up. I think while you've worked with a lot of different artists, you listen to a lot of different music. I've always I think it's safe to identify sort of like heavier music, metal, hardcore, and stuff as kind of your wheelhouse as a promoter. I've noticed most of the bands and artists that you've worked with are in that style of music. Is that just come from strictly of a personal preference of that kind of music being like your favorite, or do you think that you work best with those bands? Do you think that you have more to offer those types of artists? Is it like a business decision, or is it like just like this is the type of music that I'm passionate about?
Well, when I first started doing it, it was in 2004 to 2009. Everybody that goes to shows can pretty much attest that was like the half decade of metalcore. Like that was when it really came in. It became a big thing. Avenged Sevenfold became one of the top 10 bands in the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like it came out of nowhere, like the way that style of music sounded. So I was fortunate enough to meet a lot of people that liked music like that. And I listened to nothing but like punk and ska growing up. And then one of my friends introduced me to Poison the Well. And like from there, it was just kind of like, whoa. I just kind of took off. So, I mean, I think as far as like this specific music scene, like metalcore and hardcore definitely always like kind of resonated more with me. But also in Santa Cruz, that's what there was no scene for. Like there was already like, like the indie, like mellow rock scene. There was already like, that was before pop punk was cool. So there was not a lot of, there were no local pop punk bands like back in the day. So that was what the access was and the demand was. Just kind of why I ended up doing it. And then I just stuck with it since then. I made so many friends. It's, I listen to mostly, like heavier music, like you said, like not as much hardcore, mostly more like metal stuff, metal and metalcore. But I've met a lot of people in hardcore bands, worked with a lot. I love doing it. Yeah, as you said, like heavy metal is what I listen to. So probably why I end up doing mostly those type of events.
And then there was a niche to carve there in Santa Cruz, right?
Like you said, there was a big niche to carve. Like growing up, it was like punk, ska, and hardcore shows.
Yeah.
And that was it. And then
Santa
like
Cruz.
that weird, like hardcore transitioning from punk and like the post-hardcore movement at the beginning, and then the Christian metalcore scene was actually really big in our area for a minute.
Okay.
Well, at least down in like the 831. And that's, I got into Poison the Well, who's not a Christian metalcore band, but then like Norm Jean, a few other bands like that were what was really popular at the time, and then it just kind of kept all rolling. And for a long time, I mean, I was doing 2-3 shows a month down in Santa Cruz. That was all that was just that type of music, and I never thought about expanding. It's just what I kept doing because it worked and people liked to see it, and I enjoyed doing it, and yeah.